people don't like the NBA Cup. Don't understand why. If you're a basketball fan, you should like more intense basketball in December. This is the first time in multiple years that we're actually seeing teams really care about December games. And not only that, it makes the regular season a little bit more interesting because of the NBA Cup semifinal quote-unquote regular season games. For example, all those games that happen over the course of all those Fridays, right? We gotta see all those Friday games. My favorite thing about the NBA Cup games, personally, before we get into the finals, the point differential matters. You actually watch these players play until the final seconds of the game. If they can get with 3 seconds to go, a transition basket layup, that might be the difference of why a team makes the NBA Cup playoffs versus doesn't make the NBA Cup playoffs. And just that in and of itself, I think, is an aspect of basketball that is not talked about too much and not cared about because the end of games tend to be running out the clock for the last 45 seconds, delay of games, yada yada. Not in the NBA Cup games. These are NBA players to the best of their ability having to guard when they're up by 20 with 2 minutes to go. That is what basketball is about, in my opinion, hence why I really like the NBA Cup. Tonight, we get to see a battle in Vegas of the San Antonio Spurs versus the New York Knicks. Two very separate, different teams. That's why I cannot wait for tonight's game. First and foremost, we have to go back and talk about the San Antonio Spurs win over the Oklahoma City Thunder, a 111-109 win. The Spurs got killed in the first quarter. For how many people that didn't watch this game, the San Antonio Spurs committed a lot of turnovers in that first quarter to the Thunder with no Wemby playing. Wemby came off the bench because it was his first game coming back after 12 games of injury. They did not have an offensive rhythm. The Thunder did exactly what they wanted the Spurs to do, speed them up. The Spurs are a very good half-court team between guys like Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, De'Aaron Fox. These are guys that, although on paper you would think they'd want to run and gun fast with these guards, these are guys that can really manipulate the pick-and-roll offense, control the pacing of a game, and when they get into their half-court sets, tend to score. I hate to say it, Stephon Castle, very rarely he makes a wrong decision in pick-and-roll offense. De'Aaron Fox, it's very rare to see him not be able to beat his defender one-on-one when he gets a good mismatch on a bigger defender. This is stuff that doesn't happen with the Spurs. Into that second quarter, they went on that 13-0 run in the second quarter that was all based on pacing and defensive control. Those are the two things that I want to specifically talk about going into tonight's game. The Thunder wanted to keep them sped up. They wanted to keep them committing turnovers, keep them on their toes. Stephon Castle, specifically, did not allow it. The backcourt of Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox is chef's kiss. I cannot express enough how incredible it is to be able to have a guy like De'Aaron Fox. He was in Sacramento. We know what he was in Sacramento. He was the ball first point guard. They had the him and Sabonis duo, and they said, hey, we need you to run the fast break. We need Sabonis to run the half court. What we haven't seen a lot from point guards such as De'Aaron Fox, I'm going to compare to guys to Trae Young, LaMelo Ball, John Morant, all the other guards that I would say are on similar tiers to a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Off-ball ability. You don't see it. You don't see a lot of those other point guards being actual efficient off-ball players. But with the Spurs, Stephon Castle has made himself the clear best playmaker on the team. The number one playmaking guy. He has the ball in his hands more than De'Aaron Fox does, more than Devin Vassell does, more than Dylan Harper does. On this team, it is the Stephon Castle with the ball in his hands. De'Aaron Fox is running. They're using the fastest player in the league off the ball to create gravity so that when Castle gets a mismatch on the left side, he can immediately get into his pick and roll action and he's not making the wrong decision. That is how the Spurs came back in this game. Was they continually hunted the mismatches they wanted. They got guys like Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort. They got them off the matchup they wanted, and the second they did, attack the pick and roll, attack. And they found success from it. Now, they don't win this game if Wemby doesn't come off the bench to drop 22 points on 11 shots, get to the free throw line, rebound the ball. He had an incredible game. Wemby played great. I thought he matched Chet very well. I thought we knew what Chet wanted to do going into this game. Now, mind you, Chet still had a very good game, 17.7 rebounds, 1 turnover. I thought Chet played very well. But at the end of the game, it came down to energy, control of the ball, defense, and Wemby. Wemby hit his shots. At the end of the day, Wemby hit that crazy mid-range shot over Lou Dort, called him too little, came down the other side, Chet missed the free throw, Wemby grabs it, screams to the crowd. You could tell the energy was different for the Spurs, and that is how they came out of this NBA Cup game with a win. It is almost the exact opposite kind of scheme for the New York Knicks. They've got their ball handler. You know who's got the ball in his hands, and that is none other than Jalen Brunson himself. He runs everything that happens in New York. He's got the spacing around him, he's got the forward defenders, and he's got the shot creators around him to feel confident with the ball in his hands at all times. 40 points for Jalen Brunson against a really good defensive team in the Orlando Magic. Jalen Suggs had a great game. Now, mind you, I think Jalen Suggs in this game early on put a little too much energy into being that offensive threat to where later in the game, Jalen Brunson was just on him, and it was nice to watch, I can't lie. But Anthony Black, really good defender for Orlando. Tristan Da Silva was drafted as a good defender. This is a good Desmond Bane. We know Desmond Bane is a good defender. But the difference is they have a direct set for their offense, and they know they perfected it. That 5-out offense of Karl Anthony Towns at the center, Josh Hart at the power forward, OG Anunoby as the small forward, Mikal Bridges as a shooting guard, and Jalen Brunson at the helm is a near perfect offensive starting five. It really is. When you look around, you see OG Anunoby being able to take advantage of mismatches from the corner. You see Mikal Bridges being active in the mid-range and attacking the rim. You've got Karl Anthony Towns, who is the best statistically big man shooter in NBA history. If we're talking efficiency and three-point shooting, there's been no one better than Karl Anthony Towns at that position. And that's not even bringing up the fact that since Josh Hart has been implemented into the starting lineup, this Knicks team has really ascended to separate levels. Originally, they were trying out the Mitchell Robinson at center. I didn't really understand that from Mike Brown. It felt like Mike Brown kind of going back to his ways as opposed to utilizing the talent he really has on this team. He believed that Josh Hart just coming off the bench would be that energy spark. Unfortunately, Josh Hart couldn't really find his shot off the bench. I think being inserted into the starting lineup really, really helped out. I worry about the bench unit for this Knicks team, though, going into this upcoming game. When I look at the Spurs roster, right, I'm going to go over and show you guys the Spurs roster here. I look at a name like Dylan Harper off the bench. I even look at a name like Julian Champagnie and Keldon Johnson. I think these are going to be the guys that have a difference maker in this game tonight if the Knicks don't do the normal Knicks and run their starting lineup for like 42 minutes of this game. But in mismatches off the bench against guys like Yabusele, Tyler Kolek, and Jordan Clarkson, I could really see a Dylan Harper or a Keldon Johnson having a huge impact on tonight's game in those awkward mismatch plays. But what I really think this game is going to come down to, as you can see, the Spurs shot 42 threes last game against the Thunder. The Knicks only took 20 threes against the Magic. I am very interested to see the efficiency and three-point scoring in this game, because I think the Spurs are going to force the Knicks to play more perimeter-based. They're going to have to hit their threes. Mikal Bridges is not going to drive in as much. He shot 7 of 13 from the field against the Magic, only 1 3. Josh Hart 0 for 4 from 3. You can see the three-point attempts really weren't there for the Knicks. I do not see the Spurs with Luke Kornet as their starting center and maybe Wemby as their backup center, whatever direction they decide to go, even if they run the two bigs out there. They're not going to have as much success being able to drive into the paint that the Knicks did against the Magic. I'm very interested to see if the Spurs force the Knicks to shoot the ball. Can a Mikal Bridges, who struggled from three-point? Can a Josh Hart, who struggled from three-point? Can a Yabusele, who struggled from three-point? Can these guys have a prominent impact on their three-point shooting enough to counter the Spurs' perimeter-based offense, which is going to be around Stephon Castle, it's going to be around De'Aaron Fox, it's going to be around Devin Vassell. These guys are shot creators. When they hunt the matchups of a Tyler Kolek, of a Jalen Brunson, of a Jordan Clarkson, they're going to score. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This Spurs team is going to score the ball tonight. They're going to be aggressive to the rim. They're going to be good at the pick and roll. Are the Knicks going to be able to counter the three-point game enough to where that would make a difference in tonight's NBA Cup game? That is really what I am figuring out right now. I've been doing a lot of input on this recently. My key players of tonight's game. Dylan Harper off the bench. He needs to take advantage of the mismatches that he's going to have against guys like Jalen Brunson, against guys like Tyler Kolek, and against guys like Jordan Clarkson. Keldon Johnson for the Spurs. Is he going to be able to match the aggression that the forwards in New York bring? We know OG Anunoby is a good player. We know Mikal Bridges is a good defender, at least on the defensive side of the ball. But if Keldon Johnson can be just as physical, it might not make it as big of an advantage for the Knicks as they are against most teams. But at the end of the day, when the fourth quarter is happening and this game turns out to be a close game, which I believe it will, because I know last year's NBA Cup game wasn't, but that's because the Thunder I think the Thunder lost to the Bucks or something like that. I'm kind of blanking on that last year's NBA Cup game, but I remember that game wasn't as good. The year before, it was a pretty good game. At the end of the day, this game is going to come down to, does Jalen Brunson, late in the fourth quarter, find the mismatches that he wants? Or does Wemby just rise up above the other guys and absolutely shoot those mid-range shots that he was hitting against the Thunder last game? Interested to see how many minutes Wemby plays. Obviously did not play the entire first quarter, but did play the fourth quarter of that Thunder game. Wemby with 21 minutes, 22 points. Is he going to come off the bench? Is he going to start? Very intrigued to see that. But overall, I think tonight's game is going to be a battle of two very differently built teams. One that is an offensive-minded guard center with that defensive forwards, where the other team is very defensive-minded on the guards and center, but not as much with the forwards. Very interested to see who takes advantage of what mismatches are hunted all day long, and eventually who comes out of this NBA Cup game on top.